I think I'm allowed to talk about hip hop because, right? Nobody bats an eye at that because it's typical. Doesn't matter though. It doesn't matter because hip hop is beyond me and it has been at the epicenter of modern fashion for almost 4 decades. The changes that were propelled by hip hop have spurred on fashion movements around the globe. But what is hip hop style exactly? To understand it, you gotta know its evolution. Now that could take a long time to do. I'm gonna try to condense it in one episode. Which is gonna be nearly impossible to do, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm your boy Reggie Casual. This is the evolution of hip hop style and fashion. And this, coming up next, is the intro. Let's get it. When people think hip hop, they usually consider the music first. But hip hop is an entire culture combining the music, art, and in recent years, the fashion and style. And while certainly hip hop music today is one of the most influential and popular music genres in the world, the fashion styles to come from hip hop are equally popular and influential. It would be real easy for me to just point at Kanye and his forays in fashion and just say that's it, but Kanye is a small, albeit significant part of the puzzle. To understand hip hop, we gotta go all the way back to the 70s in the minority enclaves in the Bronx of New York. Black and Latino communities during this time were written off as marginalized and in repudiation to the more contemporary styles that essentially copied white America a generation before. The 70s brought about an anti-status quo movement that not only brought about social and political awareness, it also changed the attitude and styles of those in the community. Ethnic traditionalism started to infuse itself within these communities. Particularly an African strain contributed to hip-hop style. And once noticed, you begin to see why some in those communities hold hip-hop so dear. By extension, hip-hop culture was an integral part, if not a major part, of defining particularly Black culture in America, which had been in disarray following the drug wave in the late 70s all throughout the 80s. One of the key contributors of hip-hop style was its music, but by extension, dance, particularly b-boy, also known as break to many. B-boy crews, a team of dancers, would often have a particular style of attire to separate their crew from another, and as crews became more and more abundant, different styles began to emerge at a rapid pace. It became clear that hip-hop was as flexible as the dancers that partook in these battles, and any style could be hip-hop. It was the attitude of the individual that made something hip-hop. It was where they were from. However, the anti-conformity strand was still a huge part of the puzzle. And while the 70s had hip-hop place an importance on DJing, the 80s saw emceeing or rapping become the focal point. Groups like Run DMC and individuals like LL Cool J became hip-hop style icons. Many would follow their example, combining the eccentricity of disco styles of generation before, taking influence from the b-boys, and even from pro-black movements like those of the Black Panthers. It wouldn't be long before full-on leather outfits or the good old Adidas tracksuit would become symbols of hip-hop at the time. Speaking of Adidas, it has a special place in hip-hop history. Of course, we all know shell toes became a symbol of hip-hop. They were the shoes that were worn by Run DMC, but Adidas would soon abandon hip-hop as soon as the culture took a darker turn. It was at this time that a company by the name of Nike would take up the mantle. But before doing so, they would embrace one of hip-hop's most cherished stars, who wasn't even an MC. In 1985, Nike would invoke basketball, one of the most watched sports by Black America at the time, and still continues that reign today. But by using its most popular player, Michael Jordan, Nike would release a shoe that would change the trajectory of fashion forever. His greatness, combined with his shoe, laid the foundation for sneaker culture today. But if it were not for hip hop and the community, the idea of wearing the sneakers simply for leisure would have never reached the heights it has obviously reached today. For it was the sneaker culture that changed fashion. And so by now, hip hop style is becoming further defined. It was armed with now sport and active restraint and ethnic traditional elements. But in the 90s, things changed. The results of drugs, massive imprisonment, and oppression were beginning to become major issues. But it also is where hip-hop style became even further refined. It is here that we enter the era of oversized, baggy clothing, which was a direct result of hand-me-downs in the inner city, as well as those returning from the penal system where clothes were often ill-fitting. And those individuals became comfortable with this clothing. They embraced it. Where just a generation before, regular and slim-fitting styles were perfectly fine, baggy clothing saw hip-hop style shedding that past, placing much more emphasis on the realities of inner-city life via rap music. In New York, boots and elements of workwear became massively popular. We're thinking of Timberlands and jeans. In the West, low tops, Dickies, and tees stemming from inner city styles and even gang culture became trends. And a slew of brands would begin to define early hip-hop style as well, running in tandem with the burgeoning streetwear styles. 555 Soul, Fubu, Cross Colors, LRG, and countless others. By the end of the 90s, rappers themselves started brands, most notably Sean John, Wu Wear, and Rockaware. By now, hip-hop fashion was an actual thing, defined by a certain set of principles that derived directly from the streets it was born. But the style was now international, reaching as far as Japan with labels like Bape that essentially changed the game, putting hip-hop within the realms of its natural counterpart of streetwear. And soon, streetwear and hip-hop would become one and the same thing, two halves of the same coin. And the 2000s solidified that in ways unimaginable. By 2004, hip-hop was all-encompassing. But one act changed its trajectory forever. His method was not unfamiliar, but he was deftly skilled at threading the needle of hip-hop's now glitzy, heavy evolution and its politically woke message. But beyond his delivery, his love of fashion would open the door to a generation of hip-hop fashion enthusiasm that we all enjoy today. That man was Kanye West. And he was essential in hip-hop fashion growing beyond its roots, not only entering mainstream, but by now effortlessly aligning itself with streetwear. Hip-hop specific brands were now a thing of the past. Street was an all-encompassing term that combined the inner city of all creeds and colors. By now, you couldn't tell who was hip-hop or not. It was simply style. But no one could deny hip-hop's overall influence. That old school eccentricity was still there, mixing and matching luxury with urban undertones. All hip-hop. Sports brands were now bigger than ever, particularly Adidas and Nike, catering to a lifestyle market that was far eclipsing simple sport. And the activism strain was now a battle between the elite and the populace, with street further encroaching on traditional high-end fashion. And while a few other major players made waves, denying Pharrell Williams in this instance would be sacrilege, at least for me. But those of the likes of A$AP Rocky, Young Thug, Tyler the Creator, and plenty more have changed the trajectory of what hip-hop fashion actually is. The truth is, hip-hop is influential because of its inclusiveness. Just like the music, hip-hop style is able to weave in and out of any subculture effortlessly. So much so that it's hard for even gatekeepers to gatekeep. It's the beauty of hip-hop and why it's so huge and why it's so important. It has almost no rules while at the same time being undeniable when you see it. So styling hip-hop is as simple as making it your own. Whether it's old school flavor or new school street, hip-hop style is everywhere, and the chances that you have partook in some degree is incredibly high. If anything, hip-hop made it okay for you to do what you want to do. And that is what hip-hop is all about. But the story of hip-hop style evolution continues to this day. And a lot was not said in this episode. So what I want you to do is fill in the gaps. Tell us what was missed in the comments below, or just give your general opinion on hip-hop style and how it has influenced the fashion world. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Follow on Instagram for the latest out of Japan and beyond. And if you're up to it and you want to get some overtime and some extra stuff as well, join this channel by joining on YouTube or by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/thecasual. But most importantly, keep it locked right here for all of your info on international street fashion and culture from Tokyo. It's your boy, and keep it casual. I'll see you guys in a minute. I told you I was gonna do hip hop. I was passionate about this one. I really was. It's important that we remember hip hop has allowed itself to evolve because of the inclusiveness of the individuals that created it.